This episode is brought to you by Gray Block Pizza. Gray Block, for that pizza you need. This past weekend. Yeah. It's Monday. And some of you guys might have recognized a little bit of that riff right there. And I wanted to get you guys a gift since I didn't get to talk to you on Valentine's. And that's that gift right there. And that's from Tiny Sandhu. And that's that magic man, that Pied Piper in the distance. You know, he's that he's that wild soldier who's just firing arrows at us, beautiful arrows from far away. And that's Tiny Sandhu. And he sent that to me on my inbox for Valentine's. And he said, give this to the people. And actually, I'll read the email right here. He said, hey, yo, sorry about the tardiness. Hope this shit get there in time. Just crank this out. And I decided to show some respect. Mr. John Mayer, 2, with a cover of his song, Another Kind of Green. And so that it is right there from Tiny Sandhu, from me to you right there. Let's hear one more time a little bit of that riff. That sound, if you notice, it sounds a little bit like a pigeon trying to learn to swim a little bit. If you listen to that, you know what I'm saying? Take that vibe in as you're hearing it. You know, it's got that a little bit of that tinge of it's like somebody trying to jerk you off while you're trying to kind of hold your breath underwater. If that means anything to anyone, take that in while you hear it. You're trying to hold your breath and somebody trying to jerk you off a little. And now then he catapults. Listen to Tiny. He gonna take us up that staircase right here. Come on, Tiny. You could do it, Tiny. Get big. That's that Tiny Sandhu right there. Happy belated Valentine's and happy February 19th. And that last riff there by Tiny, man, he just, you know, when he really blows up there at the end and he just lets it all hang out, it sounds like somebody just putting kind of just lukewarm caramel onto a baby's back. If you'll hear this one more time, take that in while you get this. There he comes in with that knife. He got that jar. And that's that creamy right there. And Tiny putting that creamy on that baby's back. Cream that baby up, boy. Put a little bit of chunky on his soft neck. He's spreading that sweet peanut butter, spreading that sweet caramel onto a baby right there. And that's that beautiful hitter right there from Tiny Sandhu. Good to be back with you guys. Sorry I didn't get a Thursday episode up, but you know what? That's how life does it. Had a crazy week. We're doing we got a pilot for Comedy Central, you know, and I'm grateful. It's a digital series. You know, they're putting us on the digital network. You know, we're going to put it out there. And it's based on the podcast, you know, so it's young dudes, and young women, you know, and even people that's, you know, in the middle, people that's running that dual sex citizenship, people that's running both operating systems at the same time, you know, transgender. Everybody's welcome on the show, and it's but yeah, it's like helping people get tight. Because we all running a little bit loose. I'm coming to you from La Jolla. I'm down here in La Jolla, California. I just went for a run. I'm here at the La Jolla Comedy Store. I want to thank everybody that's come out. We've sold all the shows out so far. Just been 2 shows on Friday. We got 2 tomorrow. Down here with little Ehsan, and he is Middle Eastern. And we also have another gentleman named Jeremy Scipio, who is a young black gentleman. Both friends of mine. And Jeremy kind of has that syndrome where it's like a white man kind of stuck into a black man's body. And if you ever met a real, it's like if they had like Death of a Salesman, like Jeremy would play Willie Loman. He's got that, he's that briefcase brother. He's like that. But both very funny men. We've been having a good time. The show's already sold out for the rest of the weekend, hopefully. So I'm coming to you guys, and it's beautiful, man. The sun is hitting this bedroom right now. I just went for a run. Man, La Jolla, you go for a run out here. Everybody's beautiful. They got tits and ass, and, I saw a girl had a chin implant that was at least a fucking, a small B cup. I'm like, damn, that she got them chits, them chin tits, and she had them. And so there's just beauty running up and down. My goodness. You just see all of it, and people putting, slickener in their hair and gelling their bodies up and getting outside and letting people kind of see their skin, and you can see pets. Even the pets are fucking beautiful. Even the pets are damn. I saw I think it was a Bichon or something, or an Australian Terrier, and that thing had some hips on it, to be honest. And I don't look at animals like that. I never have, but that thing had some hips on it. But good to be back, man. Good to be with you guys. I want to update you on a few things. We got the Hamster Rancher video. It's just been this past week, I didn't get time to rest. I booked too many comedy sets, and I was shooting the pilot all day, each day. And then I had to take a train down here to La Jolla. And, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be busy, but that lifestyle is fast. It's fast. And at the same time, I'm trying to keep my head above water. And I just last weekend, I forgot my medication at home. I don't know if anybody's ever been without their medication. But, man, you'll get bent out. The first day, if I don't take an antidepressant, the first day I'm okay. I don't notice it. But that second day, boy, they could have a bunch of birds outside, and all I'll hear like a, I'll hear like an angry crow. They'll have a bunch of sparrows chirping and doing the Lord's verbal diligence. But I'll hear like an angry crow, like half a mile away. And that's what sometimes being off the antidepressants does for me. Makes me all bent out. Makes me, just real on edge. Like I'm living on, my brain is living on an inline roller skate. Those inline roller skates where the wheels are in a row? It's like my brain is riding on one of those, and it's ready to it's just wobbling. It's wobbling. But so it took me a couple days, man. I had to regroup, and I just hit that run out here. I got that 4-mile hitter in, because one of my goals this year is to get that body pump. And some people, they like that old-fashioned body pump. You outside and, putting butter on the legs and pushing, going to prison just to, be able to work out, that old school kind of shit. But I like that. You go to the gym, you get that maybe 70-minute workout in, and you get that full body pump. I like my whole body to feel pumped up. Some people want that one muscle group. I want that whole body pump. I want to feel like my skin kind of lifted off the bone a little bit. I want to feel kind of light in the legs. I want to feel like, I want to feel my balls kind of bubbling up by the top of my sack. I want to feel that body pump. I want to feel that warmth. I want to feel it inside of me. So, yeah, I'm down here in La Jolla, and it's been good, and thank you guys for your support. Had a good time in Portland last week. some people wrote in like, Theo, what happened in Portland? What was going on? And I didn't comment much on it, And then, I thought more about it, and I'm like, well, some things, I should comment on, and some things I shouldn't comment on. And I had a good experience at Harvey's. We had a lot of great people come out. A lot of people came out. I mean, I honestly, and I want to put some photos up. I probably had 10 people that came out. It was their first time ever at a comedy show. And that's pretty amazing, just to have that opportunity to be somebody's inaugural experience. But we just had an issue one night on the stage. It was I think it was the third show on Saturday or something. The MC was just going through a tough time, and he and I got into some differences backstage, and he just, he just said some offensive stuff, and then he brought me on the stage, and so it was just awkward, and I'm not. Look, I'll take responsibility. Like, I probably, could have been kinder to him off stage, maybe. Or I could have recognized maybe if he was going through a tough time. I don't think I was as keen as I could have been. But yeah, so then it was just awkward. So this dude's like, F-bomb this, F this guy, fuck Theo, blah, blah, blah. Then I got to come out and perform. So it was the strangest thing I've ever been through. I've never had an issue at any comedy club I've ever been to in my life, ever. I'm trying to think of one issue that I've had. Maybe, people in the audience being wild. One lady bought a snake one time down near El Paso. One lady bought a rattler and let that bitch loose because it was her birthday or something, or, her brother's quinceañera or something, and they setting it off, and they let a rattler loose at that club. But outside of that, I've never been involved in anything at a comedy club. One time, actually a long, long time ago, me and a gentleman did get into an argument. He was in the audience, and I got into the crowd and had to choke him down a little. Give him that light choke, bruh. Give him that fucking hard scarf, And the problem was, while we're sitting there wrestling on the ground, I had the microphone with me the whole time. So we're arguing, fighting, rolling around, and the whole audience can hear every little part of it, Even to the point where, when you like, when a fight stalls out and the two dudes are just like, let me go. You let me go. I'll let you go. Let go of my hair. You let go of my hair. Let go of my, all right, 1, 2, 3, boom. Right. And then everybody lets go. The audience was listening to all of that up close because I had the microphone right there with me. So, man, by the time we stood up from that, the audience was howling because it was like they were behind the scenes on a fight. They were behind the scenes on a fight. So, but yeah, that was the thing. The guy's like, fuck you, Theo's a fucking asshole. And he brought me up. And it was just, and I didn't say anything on stage. And I just didn't want the crowd to feel uncomfortable because it was really uncomfortable, And I know the guy's probably going through, the dude had, he hadn't been having a good weekend at all. And he was, he was opening up the show, and I'd asked him not to use profanity at the front of the show because, I drop some. And one of the rules in comedy is if you're too blue up front, then it doesn't leave room for the dude at the end to be blue, Like if the first guy drops a bunch of F-bombs, then, the crowd might not be ready for all that. And so it just can make it tricky out of the gate. So anyhow, that was the situation. Am I blaming the dude? No, I'm not. But here's the crazy part. The club left him in the building. So here's a dude that was like threatening me and then brings me up on stage. And then the club just is serving him booze the whole time and left him in the building. So then he brings me off stage at the end. So when I get off stage, he's coming back up. And I'm thinking, does this dude want to wrestle? Does this dude have a dagger? Is he going to try to, do we have a syringe of bleach and he's going to try to get me in the neck? Is he going to try to give me that ultimate white neck? So it was just poorly run. I will say that. And the people that booked me and everything were cool, but it was poorly run. And so I want to apologize to my fans that came out and were in an environment that they felt was poorly run. Because, I take responsibility for what my fans come out to see, A lot of my fans are my friends. So I take responsibility for what they come out to see. And if they come out to a show and the MC, the dude who's, is yelling, fuck this dude, I'll fuck him up, all of this shit. And the club's letting them stay in the building because they're not paying attention to their own stage because they just worried about whatever else. Then you know what? It's not a fair way to treat somebody. And it's not a fair way to treat audience members. And I feel like at that point, I'm like, and I'm not whining about it. It's like, the dude was going through a tough time. I get it, man. We all go through tough stuff, and I'm not even generally mad at the guy. I'm really not, I've been there, I've had a lot of anger, and I'll admit I had some part in it. I probably could have handled myself a little bit better with the guy, recognize he was going through things. But the club that leaves a dude in there, that wasn't cool. It wasn't cool. So outside of that, I think most of the people that came out, we had a great experience, and that was that. But everybody's been asking, and so, I wanted to comment on it. I'm not saying don't go back to the club. I'm not saying that they're not a good place. But I'll say that it was the most awkward experience I've ever had at a club over the weekend. I will say that, Anyhow, what else, man? Let's get into what else. I got that body pumping. And I'm down here in La Jolla. One of the things that happened to me sometimes, this used to happen a lot when I was on the road. You'll get a couple of Muppets that'll reach out trying to catch that meat, You get some ladies you haven't talked to in a while and they hollering at daddy. They see daddy's name on a sign, they dropping, a text, Remember this? I met you, 6 years ago behind the Mexican grill. Remember this? You used to know my girl Janet. We met up by we all went over to the park and we're on a swing set drinking liquor. You remember this? It's like, you got to fend some of that off. I notice as I get in this zone, I got to get a little more focused on my shows, man. Now when I was a little bit younger, I'd be out there, and a lot of these ladies whistling at this meat. And a lot of ladies trying to catch this hit of ham in their jaw. But now I'm trying to stay focused. I got my eye on the prize. And I just put an orange slice in my mouth. And I'm sorry, I know people don't like to hear people eat. But I just put a beautiful little orange slice in my mouth. And god damn, that thing was beautiful. I mean, I love oranges. Now, some of y'all know, my brother used to eat a lot of oranges when we were children. And I strongly remember watching him eat oranges. And I just remember thinking, man, that boy, he's got it made, Because I was in the environment where like, one of your siblings would go off and get something and then bring it back just for them. Nobody was bringing back 2 oranges. So you'd be like, damn, this motherfucker got an orange, huh? It'd be Christmas and you're like, damn, look at this bitch with that Christmas orange. And you'd watch him eat that thing. And you'd watch him, rip into the shell of that thing, that orange shell, and just see some of that skeet just fly out that orange, And that's just the Lord's backwash flying out of that thing. I'm just saying, oh man, you try to catch it in your mouth in the air because you knew that was all you were going to get. And you sit there and watch your sibling eat something thinking maybe they give you that last piece. You remember that? Be like, damn, he down to 2 slices left on this orange. Oh, I know one of these gotta be for me. And fucking nothing, bro. Nothing, man. Those are the old days, man. Those were the old days. But yeah, what else, man? I'm down here in La Jolla. It's beautiful. If you haven't been to La Jolla and you want to go to a good place, a lot of people come out to Los Angeles and stuff to, do holidays. Get that La Jolla in. This thing's fire, man. This thing is fire. And, I didn't chime in over Valentine's, and I just want to express my love, man. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for all your love and support. We had a call come in about Valentine's. We're going to get into that. We're also going to get into, we had a call come in from, somebody considering a adult sexual prostitution, maybe light prostitution, service work. We're going to get into that. We're going to discuss what state would win if all the states went to war, which could happen. Which state's going to win it all? That's what I want to know. And I got some ideas, and I know you guys do too. Some of you guys hit the hotline. And as always, if you have any thoughts or comments from this week's episode, you can hit the hotline 985-664-9503 and comment on whatever we have going on. I want to let you guys know that's it. Let's go, man. Let's get into it. This was a call that we had come in about Valentine's. Here we go.
Theo, it's your boy Scotty J down in West Palm.
Scotty J down in West Palm. And I have spent time down in West Palm. And last time I was there, I won about $800 at the casino there, at the Hard Rock Casino. And also, one of the first girls I ever met off of Tinder, I met down there in West Palm. And she ended up getting married years later. Onward.
Wanted to give you my story about how I almost died on Valentine's Day back in
Love hurts, brother. You almost died on Valentine's Day? Love hurts, man. That's a fact, Scotty. That's a fact. Onward.
died on Valentine's Day back in 3rd grade. So I was getting a piggyback ride for one of my homies in school. This bigger black kid named Jason.
Whoa. And right there, I'm going to stop you, man. I mean, piggyback ride, probably the least safest form of travel after Greyhound bus. You got Greyhound bus, and then I think you go to piggyback ride. You know, it's like, you got Greyhound bus and you go to piggyback ride, man. So this is already out the gate. It's dangerous. You riding on a brother. Onward.
I said let go. He didn't hear me. I let my hands go. He didn't let my legs go, and I smacked the ever-living shit out of my head. The only thing I remember much of that day is waking up in the nurse's office and then them telling me to ride my bike home.
Okay, already got a couple issues in his Valentine's story. First of all, he heard you. He heard you say don't. He heard you say let go. He didn't want to let go, man. Because the funnest thing to do when you're young is to have your boy struggle. And if he can, suddenly he giving you that reverse wheelbarrow, he giving you that dirty dancer, where he's just holding you, he got your legs up behind his rear waist and he's dragging your hair along the ground. He's giving you that free salon visit. He's just dragging your hair through the dirt. And next thing you know, your head hit the ground and you end up in a nursing office. Onward.
My brother told me I hit every garbage can on our street. And when I got home, I couldn't really speak much English. It sounded like a little bit of gibberish. And I couldn't open my hand to take the Advil from my mom. So she rushed me to the hospital. And when I got there, I threw up everywhere immediately walking in. And they took me right back and took care of me. So I guess the moral of the story would be, if you got to go to the emergency room, throw up as soon as you walk in. They got no choice but to take you.
It's not a bad thought. Puke as you enter. I mean, that could work for a lot of places. At your stepmother's house, your aunt-in-law, any of those places, man. Puke as you enter. So, yeah, man. I mean, honestly, it don't sound like that fucking bad, dude. People get murdered on Valentine's. People come home and find their spouse getting, holed out by a big brother, So, I don't know if this is that bad of a circumstance. You hurt your head in 3rd grade, brother. I mean, I appreciate the call. It's risky. Piggyback, one of the riskiest forms of travel, dude, and we all know that, man. And it's a gateway also to homosexuality. And I'm not saying homosexuality is bad or anything, but I'm just saying it could happen. It could happen. And that's it, man. That's what's up there. Dude, I'm running out on this beach. I can't even tell you how nice it is down here in Florida right now. Or La Jolla. I'm looking out and I just see, I see the trees and I see the beach and it literally looks like Florida. It looks like Florida, man. And I don't want to get into it, but my heart and thoughts and and my love goes out to all the people dealing with the tragedy there in Florida. And I know that's a tough time, and it's tough to see that. And it's, I don't know how you find the solution. It makes me want, I've never been a parent, but I just wonder how hard is it to know if your kids have guns? If your kids are not doing well. Maybe it's just really hard to know. You know, because look, you can argue the gun thing all day. It would be great I'd love it if they didn't make any more guns. You know, I'd love it if they made if they made a law a lot of times that we got enough guns. You know, I'd like it if we went back to bow and arrows and see who's a real boss. You know, I'd like that action sometimes. But even more so beyond that, it's just how do we know if somebody's okay or not? How do we know if a dude's all right? Because everybody says, oh, we had that kid in our club. We had that guy in our, And I don't think the video games help either when you got these shoot 'em up type games, but I don't know if that influences people. I don't know. Oh, man, but it's just such a tragedy of just children going to school and then, and then they're going to heaven. And it's just disheartening. And then the media blows it all out. Now everything is it's a commentary on society, and it's a commentary on, immediately, it's a commentary on politics. And I wish somebody would shoot up one of these news networks. There you go. That'd be somebody with some real balls. But I feel horrible. Because imagine, a lot of these parents, they probably feel, as much as they don't want to, they probably feel some sadness also for the shooter, for the kid. Because obviously something was wrong with him. Obviously he was hurting. And I'm sure as a parent, you just don't want to see any child hurt. All right, man. I didn't mean to bring us into that hole right there. But it's a real thing. They didn't have that when I was young, I don't think. I mean, they had kids do guns. They had one of my friends was playing Russian roulette. His brother was playing Russian roulette and accidentally killed himself. Another young man was had a gun out at a party and accidentally killed himself. Definitely when there's a gun in the room, I don't get I'm not the guy that gets comfortable. I'm the guy that usually leaves the room. If there's booze and guns in the room and you're not like in a hunting environment, I'm out. Because it's usually a knucklehead that brings a gun into that type of environment. But talking about that and talking about what's going on in these and making people mentally healthy. And then I wonder what factor of it is like, do humans even mean as much to other humans as they used to? Is there something there where we're starting to just lose the human connection? Where you just look at other humans and you don't get that feeling that we're the same thing anymore or something. I'm talking about something in the air and the zeitgeist that we're not, that connectivity isn't there, that used to be there. I mean, you used to need humans. There was a time when you needed humans for everything. And now you can kind of not need humans if you want. You can go a whole day and really not need any humans. You can just need machines. They even have something called life support. It's a machine. You could just be on that. Back in the day, if you wanted, some support, you had to go to an actual person, have them just, cheer you on, hold your hand, tell you they love you. Now they got a life support machine. So it's just maybe, times are changing. I don't know. I don't know, man. It's just a lot. It's a lot if you let it be a lot, I guess. But I guess, what I try to do instead right now, I'm just trying to embrace what's going on, embrace, the things that are exciting. I got to ride down on that train yesterday. They had and I'm not going to say that this gentleman was a gay man, but he seemed predominantly gay. Kind of an older black gentleman dressed up. And he asked if he could sit on my lap. And look, I don't want a senior to not have a place to sit down. And I said, he goes, I know this is going to sound, crazy or surprising, but the train is so full. I was wondering if I could just kind of just sit right here by you. But by me, he kind of lowered his buttocks and his, upper leg onto my leg. I'm like, that's not by me. I'm thinking that's on me. And so I was like, well, I'll get up. You can sit down. He's like, no, I don't want you to not to have a seat. You know, we could probably make this work. And it was just awkward, man. And then he when it was obvious that it was uncomfortable for me, he meandered down the train and found another man who was more willing to get into all of that. And but it was a nice ride. It was a good ride. So let's talk about this, man. Let's talk about if America was, because people are getting separated. You got to keep them separated. That's starting to happen. Because places are so different. Places live by different ideals and what means something to them. Things are getting separated. And I don't blame it. I don't think that the congruency that a lot of, there's this whole agenda kind of thing that pushes this, we're all equals, we're all the same, but it's not the reality. It's not the reality. And I think there's people that just want that. I think there's some people that believe in that, and they believe that in that because their perspective of the world is that we are all the same, and everything in their little world, it makes sense. And then I think there's other people, it's like, that's not what's going on. It's a great idea, but that's not what's going on. And I think people are, kind of getting back to or finding things that make them, will start to take pride in things that are more local. There's been more local news has been watched in the past year. Did you know that? And that hasn't been the case for probably 10 years. I'm sure it's been on the decline, maybe 20. People are just trying to get back to their roots a little bit, find things that are real to them, find things that they know are accurate in their life, and latch onto those a little bit more. And so that's why I think you could see the states. I think you could see an all-out state versus state war. And who would win? Where would that start? What would that even look like? What would that even look like? Would your state have a chance? What would that look like? We had a couple calls that came in, and I'm gonna pepper those in with my own thoughts and ideas. Let's start off with one of those. Here we go.
Hey, Theo. It's Chris calling from Waldo, Maine.
Waldo, Maine, and I'm sure everybody pull a Where's Waldo on it. And I dressed up like Where's Waldo one time for Halloween, more than one time, before everybody else did. Everybody got onto that shit for a while. I did that shit when I was in 8th grade. And my boy Tickly Todd drank some gasoline at the gas station. Because we were also on mushrooms and he had to go home early. Onward. Thanks for calling, Chris.
I'm just calling about your topic of the states going against each other in like a war scenario. And basically, my idea is Maine, my home state, would be most likely to be successful in this situation because of all the wholehearted people here,
Okay, you saying Maine's going to be successful because of the wholehearted people? This isn't a bake-off, Chris. Okay, this isn't recipes aren't coming into play. This is a war, brother. This isn't who got the most pecans in their, in their basket. Wholeheartedness ain't going to help. This isn't who owns the most episodes of Little House on the Prairie on cassette. Let's hear more.
We have dairy farmers. We have lobstermen. We have everybody out here. So,
bro, y'all got milk and shellfish. Two of the most things that people are most allergic to. Dairy and shellfish. Y'all going to have gout and diarrhea, bruh, by the end of the first battle. Let's hear more.
So I once knew a lobsterman. He was fishing out there, and he was baiting a trap because there's bait bags that go in the lobster traps. And he broke his finger on that fishing boat. He drank himself a gallon, I think it was, or a half gallon of coffee brandy, and he was good to go. It's their medicine out here, so you give our war force a little bit of coffee brandy, some half and half milk from our strong dairy farmers, and I think, honestly, we would succeed.
Succeed at what? Succeed at seasickness? You just named one man who broke his finger trying to fish. So I got to say, out of the gate, Maine would be out. I've been up to Maine. It's a lot of people growing their own weed, arguing with the cops, and the cops are also at home growing their own weed. Okay, I spent some time off Islesboro Island out there, John Travolta country. Went and we had dinner with Kirstie Alley one time when I was a child. A friend of mine knew her. and I tried to finger bang a chick in an attic out there who I was in love with, and also hit a bat with like a vampire, not a vampire bat, but like a regular American bat with a tennis racket. So I've been through some shit out there. You know, Maine is just a bunch of unfinished houses, a lot of rainwater. I mean, it's good people. You got the black bears. That's y'all's state mascot for the state, for the college, University of Maine, I think. But I'm going to say this. I don't think you guys get out of that bracket. Out of that northeastern bracket, no way. You guys would probably, y'all would escape to Canada out of the gate. I'm going to say that for Maine. You know, New Hampshire's right there with you guys. I think New Hampshire, I think most of y'all's force would probably be, I'm guessing, wholehearted lesbians. You know, you want to talk about wholehearted, I'm talking about that vitamin D, 100% milk fat lesbians. That would be a lot of that workforce, that war force out of New Hampshire. And I think that hamp right there I mean, here's the thing that Maine does have, though. Maine has a lot of people that are used to living in the woods. So you'd have that kind of militia style. But y'all are a lot of vegans, dude. A lot of people up there eating raspberries and, you know, cultivated scabs, just bad granola. I don't think y'all going to have the energy to withstand. Y'all know about a lot of roots and stuff like that, so you could live in the woods for a while. So I'd say this, Maine would beat New Hampshire. I think you guys would probably struggle against Vermont. And Vermont and New Hampshire, let's be honest, they're really just the same thing to people. Okay, I know that, New Hampshire, I think, is John Irving country. He wrote a lot of those books, Cider House Rules. You know, you got a lot of wrestlers and a lot of rich kids up there going to private schools and stuff like that. But the truth is, that's a great white north. A lot of people hopped up on syrup, sucking on trees, smoking dope. You know, you got the basketball team up there, the Catamounts. I don't think that's going to help. You know, they're super pale, way pale. You know, people look like they're allergic to the sun. I don't think anybody makes it out of that bracket. Now, I think then you get over to Massachusetts. And I think Connecticut would get their ass kicked by Rhode Island. I'm going to go with that if we're starting in this northeast bracket. Connecticut doesn't have a shot. Connecticut's a lot of, rich people. A lot of people from New York and stuff hiding their money out in Connecticut. They got these really fancy homes. They got these rolling hills outside of Hartford. You got the British out there. It's basically British. It's a lot of people trying to pretend that they're not British, and they do look British. They got these little rock walls outside of their houses. It's fancy. It's richy rich. A lot of covered bridges out there. So I'll say this. Connecticut could stand back in these homes and protect themselves with some long-range weaponry. But let me say this, man. You get some boys out of Hartford. You give them a little bit of gas money. They take over that countryside, I think. And then they're going to, but Providence, I think, will whoop everybody's ass. Providence is wild. Providence is wild. I mean, I saw a dude one time in Providence. He was shaving, right? And he was thirsty. He cut his tongue with his razor and just took a sip of blood for his own thirst. And that's Providence. I saw a dude one time eat a paper bag, man, with mustard on the outside of it. Spicy mustard. And that's lunch. That ain't lunch to me, but that was lunch to him. And that's Providence out there. People eating paperworks. So I think you probably have, you'd have Rhode Island sneak in, but there's just, they might take Connecticut, but Massachusetts is going to take all of that. Massachusetts has them wild alcoholic boys out there in Amherst. A lot of alcoholism. You got Boston, these Patriot fans, and then what's going to happen? You can have New York. And New York City, man, it's not the same as it used to be. Let's be honest. You want to talk about a place that's low-key, secretly as gentrified as possible? We're talking about Manhattan. It's a lot of mookity-mooks over there, a lot of high rent. Alphabet City down there on the Lower East Side is the only place you can even get a fucking good gram of dope or anything, or heroin, or even, you can catch some good hookers or something here and there if you want it. But outside of that, New York City's, man, overall, it's not what it used to be. Now, you get out into the burbs, you got some stuff happening. Williamsburg, Brooklyn, those people probably aren't going to fight. This ain't like the Newsies back in the day when Christian Bale and the boys would argue over, the price of newspapers and what was being printed. These dudes nowadays, a lot of soft cats out there. So you can have a lot of dudes saying, Williamsburg, like, Like you'll read in Williamsburg, the graffiti in the bathroom, you'll read like, Derek sucks dick, but only if he's okay with it. You read shit like that. You're like, what? Who cares? It's just supposed to say Derek sucks dick. It's not real. Nobody even knows who Derek is. It's not a real thing. It's graffiti. But they'll be trying to make too much peace. They'll be trying to make too much peace in a war. They won't realize it's called a war. And they'll be trying to do all this peace stuff and wear all these fancy sneakers. And I think New York is taken out. New York City, I think they get taken out, though, by the real hitters. Rochester, Buffalo, Albany. They had a guy on a Greyhound bus out there outside of Albany cut another man's head off at a rest area. Do you know the savageness have to be in someone to take another man's head off with probably a not even decent blade? I can barely go pee at a rest area, and this man is doing upper body work. Okay. So I think New York is going to be going in strong, but it's going to be a lot of them real boys out of Buffalo, Rochester, out of Binghamton. It's going to be a lot of real boys coming up there out of Syracuse. Not the people that go to the college, but the people that live in the town. You know what I'm talking about. People with neck tattoos, a lot of blue breaths, a lot of real cats out there. A lot of people that got, a lot of people that have tattoos of other family members on their body. Gang. So that's at Northeast. I think you got New York, but I think a lot of it. And then you got New York and Massachusetts. And I think New York gets that. New York gets that because they just have so many more little pockets of hidden people. In Boston, they tough, but also Boston's got a lot of, hidden waspy, whatever, fancy pants. It's a lot of, the gateway city of college, the river of colleges, all of this. It's a lot of mookity mooks. It's a lot of people who don't wash their own silverware. So I think that's what you're going to get right there, and you get New York that takes that region. So out of there, you got New York, predominantly upstate New York, taking that region. That's where I'm starting at. And that's what I'm going to pull out of that main conversation. Chris, I appreciate your call. Let's take another call right here. Here we go.
Hey, Theo, this is Ryan. And even though I'm from the state of Pennsylvania, I'm going to have to say Hawaii would probably win the war of the states, just due to the fact that they're so isolated from the rest of the country out, and they have the natural defense system of the ocean around them. And I doubt the other states would have like a developed Navy or Air Force, so they'd probably just be the last men standing, basically, because no one wants to go and fuck with them. And they could probably even negotiate with Kim Boy over in Korea, borrow some nukes maybe to use. So I'm going to have to go with Hawaii.
Wow. I didn't even think. Here's the crazy part, and I hate to say this. I'm not trying to be rude. I didn't even think about Hawaii. And the truth is probably nobody did. It's that secret state. It's that state where you get done counting them all, and you're like, damn, what did I forget? And it's Hawaii. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, it's probably getting a little dim in here. That's because the sun went down, and the lampage that I'm using in here isn't super solid. But if you're on audio, you're still good. Ryan, that's a great point. I appreciate that call. Yeah, Hawaii, you don't think about that. You guys have all the water. You guys are going to have military vessels that are going to be sitting out there. Now, New York, I didn't even give you guys credit. You'll have a little bit of that harbor, but to be able to access that harbor over there in New York, I mean, you're dealing with a lot of other you're dealing with, it's going to be tight over there on the East Coast getting out of that harbor. So I think that harbor ends up being kind of nullified over there on that upper East Coast. But Hawaii, yeah, it's a 4-hour flight from California. So yeah, Hawaii would probably become this, you guys would just be this safe place, I think, where the fight wouldn't come to there. And it would have to be if you guys wanted to go and get into the fight, and I don't think you would. And I think you guys would just be able to find some peace over there on your island, or divide into, go off into the separate islands, Kauai, and, certain people with certain beliefs and everything end up in those islands and defending their own territories. But that's a great point, man. Hawaii's going to tie no matter who it is. All right, let's get into another call here that came in. Here we go.
What's up, Theo? It's your boy Brian from Bonita Springs, Florida again.
Hey, Brian, thanks for calling in from Bonita Springs. And I've been down there one time. I don't remember what I was doing, but I also remember trying to make love to a woman that worked at what was that place called? It was a bakery, Baker's Rack? I'm not sure. Onward?
Man, I'm calling about if all the states started fighting each other in a war. Man, I want to say Florida would win, but we're out here sleeping. A lot of people, they're on them pills out here. So I really don't think Florida would even be in the top 20.
Oh, yeah, that's dilaudid country. You get out there in the mid-Florida, man, you don't even know. The candy machine got opioids in it. You know, you give a kid a nickel and he comes back, he comes back with a little handful of cinnamon opioids. So, yeah, I think you do deal with some of that over there. Onward, let's hear more of your call.
I think Texas would have to win. And you know that's true. They got all them guns out there. Most of the people there are probably drunk on at least 16 beers. So they'd be running around, probably most of them wearing a cowboy hat.
Oh, that's speculation, man. And that's hat wear speculation and alcohol speculation. Let's hear more.
Got some spurs on the back of a pair of New Balances with a damn revolver on their hip. So I think they're probably already ready for a war.
Now, I'll agree with you there that I think I wouldn't be surprised if Texas might already be ready. Let's look at that southeast region. Let's take that into account really quick. Okay, so Florida, you think you guys might be too pilled up. But you have all those bays and outlets to water. You have all that water access. I think there would be a lot of interstate war in Florida before. That's the problem. Some of these states aren't on the same page enough. People from Miami, they're all going to leave and go back to whatever original country that they, came from, pretty much. Tampa, I mean, that's pirate country. So a lot of them are going to get their boats out and be ready to rock. So you can have that Navy right there out of Tampa. Orlando, those people are all going to fly back to their original states. Because they're all down there they're all just Instagram and Disney. And then you'll have Jacksonville. Jacksonville's a bunch of hard hits. And I think a lot of Jacksonville, they might roll up to Atlanta and Georgia and join up with Atlanta. So I think you'd have North Florida versus South Florida. And who's going to win that one? I mean, you have a lot of guns. Actually, from Pensacola to Jacksonville, I think you have a lot of guns. And I think a lot of those people might join forces. Now, Miami, if you've seen the first 48, they got a lot of guns in Miami. So I think Florida would implode. You would have too many people fighting amongst themselves. I think a lot of these northern cities, Pensacola, Panama City Beach, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, they would probably move off to join other cities. They'd move off to join Atlanta. They'd move off to join Mobile. And also some over to New Orleans. I think you'd have Tampa a fleet would leave, planning to go attack, but they would probably start drinking. A lot of Buccaneers fans, they got that cannon. And next thing you know, they would end up in New Orleans and join up with Louisiana. So Louisiana is going to have a little bit of an increased force. All right, now you got Atlanta. And a lot of this is where a lot of Civil War battles were fought. So you're going to have a lot of nostalgia. You're going to have a lot of people selling Civil War II artifacts and autograph posters. Tonight speaking at the bar, we got the great-great-grandson of Robert E. Lee, or, we're playing Glory tonight and everybody come watch. It's a fundraiser. You can have a lot of that. Now, Nashville's pretty split. It's like liberal and conservative. So I think in places like that, you can have a lot of, dissension within the ranks. People that want to fight, people that don't. And it's going to be tough to really put together a good militia in some of those places. Alabama, those people are going to go have guns. I have a brother-in-law from Alabama, and he had on underwear one night, and he said, "How many guns do you think I have on me?" And he was wearing just underwear. And this man was bodily unattractive. He had kind of cute ears a little bit, but bodily unattractive. And he had 2 guns on his person at the time. So that's what's going on there. That's gun country. Mississippi, Mississippi ain't going to do shit, man. No disrespect, but they can't even win an SEC title, really. So they're not going to make it pop. Atlanta could turn up. But Atlanta, if racial tension starts, I don't know if that's going to happen. If racial tension starts in Georgia between black and white, then it might get weird. If people are able to band together, then Georgia could be a real force. South Carolina, North Carolina, they would fight each other. And I think that they would cancel each other out. Because for some reason they have so much just angst against each other, they wouldn't be able to make it out of there. Nashville, I think that they would implode. They got the mountains, though. So when you got those mountains, that gives you a really that high ground is crucial. And that's what's going to help Arkansas. But Arkansas, I think, they're still trying to get a lot of, I don't think, they're still trying to figure out who's family and who isn't family. And there's still too many domestic disputes over there. I think that they would end up fighting each other more. So coming out of that South, I think you're going to have New Orleans down there. But they're having so much fun down in New Orleans. A lot of the gunplay down there, a lot of the crime there is black on black. So you'd have to really, band together and get a good, black and white militia to band together, I think, for Louisiana to have a good shot. But I think Georgia's going to be your power player, Georgia or Alabama, coming out of that southeast region. And maybe Tennessee, but, I just don't know. Now, Texas, then we get over to Texas, and I'll tell you straight up, Texas is used to defending a border out of the gate. So they're going to have that ability out of the gate. Texas is used to defending a border. So they already have all that experience. Bang, bang. So that's going to be huge. Texas is a lot of hard-working, show-up men. And I don't care what ethnicity or anything, that shit doesn't matter as much in Texas. In Texas, it's about do your shit or get the fuck out of here. And so I think they're going to bring that style of play to this war. And I think out of the gate, that's going to whoop Louisiana's ass. They'll whoop Arkansas. There's actually a town called Texarkana, which is Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana. It's the corner of all three. And that town would just be called Texas Town because they're going to whoop ass. New Mexico, a lot of those people might head back to regular Mexico out of fear. So I think you got Texas going to whoop ass around there. Oklahoma's a lot of bad boys. And it's a lot of Native American people. So that, that's, you're going to be dodging bullets and ducking arrows. That's going to be hard to do. But I think Texas does that. I think Texas really, really does that. Now over to this West Coast, and you got Arizona, Las Vegas. Dude, Las Vegas, they're going to take all that money and run off. They're going to be gone. Nobody's defending that place. Nobody's even from there. Everybody's out of Nevada. Utah, they're going to be praying for everything to work out for everyone. And I think we will all need that. So I'm hopeful that they'll do that. Arizona, a fifth of that state is probably illegal, or maybe a 12th or something. And I'm not saying that to offend anybody. I used to live in Tucson, Arizona. I had a lot of friends there that were not legal citizens. So, whatever. But I think a lot of that group's going to leave. I don't think they're going to be able to hold it down. So then I think you have Texas and California. They're going to have to, really go toe-to-toe at some point. Washington and Oregon will probably refuse to fight. They'll probably try to, have a cook-off or do something more peaceful. Even though you have a lot of cowboys, you got a lot of bad boys out there. In eastern Washington and eastern Oregon, a lot of real deal cats. But I think that they're going to merge up in some other group. And they might band together out there in the hills of Idaho. So now you got men out there in the hills of Idaho, men and women. You got families just holding up out there. And I think that'll actually just become a group that won't fight as much as they will just start to take care of themselves. But then Texas is going to want a piece of California. Just because everybody wants a piece of it, but they're the closest ones. Now, California, man, they got a lot of hard heads coming out of San Francisco, out of Oakland, Hayward, Sacramento, the home of missing people. San Jose, one of the most peaceful communities. You got, Los Angeles. Everybody's going to leave Los Angeles and go back to either their home countries or their home cities. Nobody's defending that place. San Diego, a lot of the military is there, right? But that military is from other states. And a lot of that military is, They're gun owners, you know? So a lot of those military, they're going to head back to their original states. So you got to factor them in elsewhere. That's why I think California folds. I don't think they have the chance. They have a ton of land. It would be some huge battles. But I think at some point you have Texas taking that whole southwestern border on the north side of Mexico. And man, and I think that, and let me look at the Midwest really quick. Wisconsin, cheese is a major ingredient. You can't fight on fucking queso. You're going to be all boweled up. You guys are going to be shitting in the woods. You know, that could be very alarming. You know, also slow. A lot of them Wisconsin boys, they big, but they slow. But they can fight in the winter because they're used to being in the cold. Indiana, where the Ku Klux Klan started, a lot of violence out there in Indiana. I wouldn't be surprised to see them show up. Ohio, they're in the national championship almost every other year, so you're going to think they're going to put something together. I think Ohio beats Michigan. I know everybody from Michigan is going to say, fuck, no way they beat us. But they beat two-year football teams every year, Michigan and Michigan State. So let's don't pretend like it might not be possible. Ohio beats Michigan. Indiana, the problem with Indiana is a lot of their youth over there and like some of these colleges and stuff, there are a lot of transplants. Indiana University is a lot of transplants. So Ohio's going to take Indiana. You go to Ohio, taking Indiana, Missouri. A lot of swingers out there. A lot of people eating at the buffet, you know. You know, wiener and vagina. So I think Ohio takes that. You know, you got the Dakotas, Minnesota could come down. Kansas, Colorado. Now, a lot of these men, they're living on land and prepared to defend themselves. But what does that look like if it really gets wild? I think a lot of those men, they would band together. I think there will be a faction over there in Colorado. So you'll have a group in Colorado. You'll have a group in Idaho up in those mountains. That's kind of that northeastern group. You'll have Texas, which is taking over the southeastern border. You'll have Georgia. You'll have New York, which is a lot of upstaters. A lot of them business cats in the city, they're out. They ain't got the balls to fight, man. They just got the balls to do banking. And then you got that Midwest region. I think Ohio will come over. But that Midwest, they don't like each other so much that I don't know if they're going to be able to band together. So a lot of them might fizzle out. You know, Wisconsin, you got a lot of cats just... And they're so nice. Minnesota, nice. You can't win a war on nice. So I think they're going to fold. You know, Minnesota would like try and beat another place and then send like a get well card, which is sweet, but not in war. We're talking about war. The Dakotas, North Dakota, South Dakota, they get together, but who gives a fuck? That's still only about 70 people. And Mount Rushmore. But that's just, those 4 people are made out of stone. Doesn't count. So you got Kansas, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's some bad cats. Now, Oklahoma, I think you'll see Oklahoma band up with a faction there from the Northeast. So then that's what I think you got, man. I think you got Georgia. I think you got Texas. I think you got that upstate New York. They're going to roll through Philadelphia. Jersey. Nah, man, this ain't everybody doing Test 200 in DECA. That shit ain't going to fly. It's not going to cut it. You guys are done. Delaware, they'll probably boat back to England. They're done. Maryland's thuggish, but Baltimore is drugged out. It's the Walking Dead, yo. So Baltimore, I think, will be under, even though they got that, but you have that Naval Military Academy. So if them boys choose to stand up and fight for that academy, you could have a real faction right there. So that's where I'm at. You know, that's where I'm at. And I'll finish that up on Thursday. I think I'll talk about it a little bit more about what is how does this play out? How does it finish out? You know, if you guys have some thoughts and you want to chime in, hit that hotline, 985-664-9503. But I feel like that's kind of where it's at. And to me, I've always kind of felt like Texas would take it. But now that I'm looking at some of the geography, I think you'll just end up with some separate groups here and there. And that would kind of become some of the new, America. And I didn't even think about Chicago. You know, I think Chicago's just going to be kind of this hub where a lot of, whoever wins that Midwest is going to take over Chicago. So whatever state that is. I mean, Illinois, they could do something. I don't know. What do you think? You think I'm crazy? Hawaii sitting out there on the outside, man, you're making me want to move to Hawaii, that's for sure. That seems like the place to be. That seemed like the place to be, man. All right, let's take one more call here. Here we go about this issue.
Hey, Theo. Tim here from Australia. Just thinking about who was going to win the war between all the states.
And Tim is from Australia, and it figures that Tim would be thinking about it because Australia, predominantly criminals, people doing crime, or people whose grandparents did crime. Because you had to do crime to end up in Australia. Let's hear more.
Now, you got to consider, like, numbers are obviously, the primary sort of driver here. So, and gun ownership and so on. So, Vermont first to fall. The fighting men and women of Ben and Jerry's third division, they'll hold out for maybe a good 5 minutes. They're out early.
Right, so Vermont's out early. They're going to be hopped up on dairy. Onward.
Montana, great fighters, yes. But only 1 million people up there, I think, something like that. They'll ride this one out in the hills. They'll come back afterwards, but they're not going to be on the podium. Louisiana, now low population, high gun ownership, good fighting disposition, and importantly, ocean access. Because this isn't just a land war. I mean, if you've got ocean access, you've got to use it. You're going to have your boats out there. I think your home state might do better than you think. Now we get to the big number states, and you're thinking, New York, California, squishy sort of, Hillary voting people. But, New York state is around 20 million, I think. California, 40 million. So even if you have a percentage of those people armed and willing to have a go, they might do better than you think.
That's a good point. That's a good point just based on sheer numbers. So say if you have just 25% of 20 million and they're willing to fight, that's 4 or 5 million, I'm not sure, with guns. And if you put them up against Montana and you arm everyone, that's 5 million against 1 million. So those numbers are going to play a big issue. That's going to be a big deal. That's a really, really good point. That might have to make me reconsider some things. Onward.
Do better than you think. Also, ocean access. This is potentially a crucial aspect in the great United States War of 2018, 19, 20, however long it lasts. Then you get to the big dog here, Texas.
And that's true because that ocean access, if you can get a group to sit out in the ocean, they can just shoot in at another group. They can bomb in, or they can just wait and let the fighting subside, which is what Ryan's talking about from Hawaii. He's just sitting out there eating pineapples and touching each other's assholes. Let's hear more.
People, all the oil, all the resources, they can keep this battle up for a long, long time, and a civilian population armed and knowledgeable about weapons. Texas for mine, my friend.
And there you go. And then it's an Australian voting for Texas right there. And Australia had one fight, I think, a long time ago, and it was called Gallipoli. And there's a movie about it where Mel Gibson got in a fight with one of his cousins, I think. It wasn't a home video, I don't think. I think it was an actual film that you can see, and it was pretty good. But that's it. If you got some thoughts on who would take that next episode, who would take that, is there something I'm not thinking about one of these states? Because, look, you never know what can happen. Crazy things have happened. Could it happen? And that's another thing. Do you think there could be a state war looming? Am I crazy? Are you crazy? Hit that hotline, man, 985-664-9503. And we're going to get into a couple more calls about other topics right now. Some people called in. And I'm going to tell you guys, too, that I will be at Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California this weekend, the 23rd and 24th of February. I'll be in Tacoma, March 15th and 16th, and Spokane, the 17th of March. I'll be in Oxnard, the 23rd and 24th and 25th of March. And then April, I'll be at Bananas Comedy in Hasbrook Heights, April 20th and 21st in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey. And those are some of the dates that we have on the books right now. Some other things we'll be getting in. Oh, Tampa. I'll be in Tampa April 6th and 7th, and you can grab those tickets now. All those tickets are available through theovon.com/tour, TOUR. But yeah, there's probably a lot of tactical things that I don't understand, about war and fighting and that sort of thing. And I'd love to know if some people have things that I'm not even considering that would really affect the way that would all lay down. Let's take a couple more callers here, man. I appreciate you guys calling and hitting the hotline. And we will do a follow-up episode this Thursday where we kind of chime in, where we put some of you guys' calls into, just in the response to the states, the war of the states, and in response to some of this other activity and this and that. All right, praise God. Here we go.
Hey, Theo, just wanted to call and had a question for you because I'm struggling right now. My whole department got laid off last Friday, and I've been in the dark arts for a while. And for the last couple of years, since I got back from overseas, things have been good, but started off difficult, and now it's been going great. And now that I got laid off, and I feel that pull, and I was just wondering what you do in addition to talk to other people, who are like-minded.
Thanks for calling, man. Yeah, when you get in that tough situation, the dark arts seem to be, sometimes it's that first line of defense. It's like the first thing you think to do when things are going tough is to do something that's, not cavalier for yourself and not real positive. And sometimes it's hard. It's hard when I know, like, for example, if I feel like, I'm doing a good streak and no, masturbation, no doing no masty, no doing no masty. And then next thing you know, I find myself by myself and something happens. I have a bad show, or I don't get a job, or I don't get on the Tonight Show, or just something that makes me feel not good. Then I resort to, I'm just thinking, oh, fuck it, man. Life sucks. I'm a jerk off all over myself. And I'll get into that space. But when I find that those things don't happen as much, or when I don't choose to go into those dark art avenues, is when I'm with other people. If I spend time with people that I care about, then I notice that my brain doesn't go there. Instead, my brain will bring up the problem to somebody. Bring up the problem to a loved one or a friend or something. Say, hey man, this happened. And they'll be like, oh, everything's going to be okay. And the next thing you know, I get back to a comfortable square in my brain. Instead of living out there in that wild, dark art Tetris. Where the squares are just coming at you and you're just jerking off. So that's something that I find is spending time with others. Spending time with others. And there's other little things, and everybody does it different. People do meditations. People go for a walk. People do little things because usually that temptation arises and it'll just sit on you for a little bit. The temptation to act out, the temptation to, run around on your spouse, or the temptation, to flirt with a girl, the temptation to cause trouble, raise hell. That pull, that little pull inside of you. Oh, things didn't go well, I'm going to get fucked up. This didn't happen, I'm going to buy a couple grams of cocaine and fucking race rats out there outside of the city limits where you legally can. I'm going to make them choices. But that's just like about 30 seconds or 90 seconds that pull is there. And if you can ride out and you don't give in to that initial pull, usually things are fine. Usually you can get through it and get back to your regular brain. And your regular brain is, it sounds like one that's doing pretty good. Like you've had some good things going for yourself since you got back from service. But I appreciate your service, man, and I appreciate you calling in, Austin. Let's go another call right here. Here we go.
Hey, Theo. I kind of needed your input or opinion on the fact that I've been basically propositioned by wealthy men to enter in some sort of like relationship. Even before I turned 18, this has been going on, and I recently moved to LA.
Okay, so you got wealthy men throwing them bucks for them fucks. You got wealthy men offering that booty cash. You know, they're trying to swipe that card between your ass cheeks. And it's popular, especially out here in Los Angeles. I think a lot of men also, there's this whole new side of that, where a lot of men are just in fear of being with a woman where there isn't a transaction, because then there's no clear terms of what's going on. You know, it makes me wonder if prostitution, or if, legalization of prostitution might be on the looming on the horizon, because men are afraid to even, do regular sex or touch regular local cooter. I mean, I get nervous. I won't even jerk off in the city limits anymore. I drive outside of town and jerk off. You know, if you see me jerking off out somewhere outside of town with a group of other men, it's not a gay thing. It's just straight men trying to just survive. That's all that is. I don't come locally usually if I can help it, because the risk reward is too much in Los Angeles. But I appreciate you calling, young lady. And you've been propositioned by these men, and let's hear more about it.
And the concentration of this sort of thing is at an all-time high. I don't know if it's like a curse or what, but it's something I've always been against, even when it came to pursuing my own aspirations and dreams, etc. It's just not something that I really believe in.
Okay, so it's not something you really believe in, slinging that canal out there to get ahead or to make a little bit of cash. Okay, let's hear more.
But right now, my entire family is in financial strain, going through a lot of hardships, and we've never been rich or anything like that, but it's just really hard to have every single member of my family going through this financial hardship. And then earlier today, my sister's dad was in a freak accident and in Puerto Rico.
Damn, Puerto Rico, and that's accident country. And if you have a friend that's very accident prone, I think it's safe at this point to nickname him or her Puerto Rico, because they got bad moons rising over there, and they got that juju hitting the air and that voodoo, gripping the people onward. They
don't know if he's going to make it or not, because that island still has no electricity, and it's just tragic because we don't even know how if my sister's going to get to go. It's just like a whole mess. And I've just been struggling with if, this whole, moral compass, and, I would never do such a thing. It's not necessarily me being selfless. I could have been struggling with this voice in my head telling me wow, you're not willing to sacrifice for your family. Because the amount of money that these gentlemen are offering me, it would make a substantial difference in my family's life.
Okay. And that's just where the call ends right there. That's it. Thank you for calling, young lady. And that's a conundrum. That's a conundrum. My first thought is no. You don't do that. But that, I think, is also an old idea. I think it's, I never had that. I got that decent dick, but I never had anything that people really wanted real heartily, and they was coming to pay for it. I never had that pay for dick. I've just had that, get it when they get it dick. And sex is a commodity. It's one of the biggest commodities out there. It's pushed constantly. In fact, as I was jogging today, I saw so many tits and asses and breasts and, you could see outlines of vulvas, and you could see trimesters. You could see everything. And it made me think damn. When I was growing up, sex was what you were trying to get. And now, I don't even know if that's the case anymore. I think now sex is available. Readily available. And what you're trying to get is something real. Something tangible. Something that, when you throw it down into your heart, it echoes. Something that that reverberates. And so, with that thought, look, if you got to get out there and do it, honey, you get out there and do it. I'm not going to be mad at you. There's women doing it for far less reasons. That's for sure. And there's women doing it for real reasons. And I know it's a tough world. I know it's a tough world. And I can't, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you I'd let one of these fancy producers maybe, when I first moved to town, put his thumb in my ass for probably, 30 grand or something. Maybe I would. I don't know. I didn't get that opportunity. I haven't gotten very many opportunities in Hollywood. But, it's sweet that you're thinking about it for your family. And I can't imagine what that's like to have family somewhere struggling. Your sister's father, that part seemed a little wild to me. Your sister's father, is that your father? If a tree fell on him or something, it's not your father. Let me hear that part again. Here we go.
Dreams, etc. It's just not something that I really believe in. But right now, my entire family is in financial strain, going through a lot of hardships, and we've never been rich or anything like that, but it's just really hard to have every single member of my family going through this financial hardship. And then earlier today, my sister's dad was in a freak accident, and in Puerto Rico, they don't know if he's going to make it or not because the island still has no electricity. And
your sister's dad? Yeah. Maybe I'm just getting, picky there with some of the facts and whatever. I'd like to see you try to find other ways to get through it. But these days, if it does, what does it mean to you? Does it mean a lot to you? Does sex mean a lot to you? If you don't, if it means a lot to you, then I think you find some other way to fight through it, get through it. If it doesn't mean anything to you, maybe that's the deal. And I don't say you get a broker or something, but I say you get out there and you get some good money. It just seems like the things that are going to come along with that environment are what really scares me for you. Women selling sex has been from the beginning of time. Everybody's selling sex in some form or another. A lot of these makeup ads, there's billboards in Los Angeles that say sugar models on every other corner. While the whole time there's this, time's up movement, there's also this whole other movement where it's just, sex is just becoming an item for exchange. And maybe that's a safer place for it. I don't know. I think this is just another big conversation kind of that, are we in a different time now? Am I living by old ideals? What's going on? Am I out of touch that, now it's it's more about the other side of things, finding the connectivity, finding something that's real. When I was young, it was about catching that nut locker, about finding a little lady that would let you, hide your root up in that nut locker. And now it's changed, it seems like. Now it's more, now it seems more like anybody can fuck, You can, get sex here or there, or internet, wherever. What else can I get something that actually, that I can feel? So that's it. And I don't know if that gives you some suggestions or not. Maybe some of our callers will have suggestions for that. And I think that that's a big topic. That's a big thought. That's a big idea. What does she do? What would you recommend? If this is my daughter, I'm going to say no. If this is, and people would even say, well, that's fucked up. If this is my sister, I'd say, but it's like, who am I to, what I'm saying? I don't know what, if with my sister, I would help her out. I would get her out of those financial situations. I would say, nah, we're not doing this shit. So I guess when I put it like that to myself, that it's more family, then it makes me really question. I don't know. I just wonder has it really gotten to that point where there's no other option? Is there another way that you can do it? Where maybe you try some of these other things. They have these different webcam sites where women are, touching their vaginas and all of that and showing, and flashing vulva and all of that. Showing tits and, breastfeeding babies and everything on there for $30, $40 an hour. Maybe there's something like that available or some other avenues. I don't know. The thing with the sister in Puerto, what are you really going to do there? That's my, like, what's your, what are you going to make, a couple thousand? I mean, I know that can really help some instances, but how long does that last? In a huge case scenario with hospital bills, whatever, a weekend, an hour? When does it, I just feel like, you're really getting into the dark arts and that there might be some better avenues. So I'd ask some other people, I'd ask some friends, I'd ask some, I'd ask around. And then I'd try and ask yourself, really, why? Why? I know you've gotten proposition, but I've been propositioned for things. People want to sometimes get me in a ridiculous, television shows, this and that. I'm like, that shit isn't for me. I have bigger thoughts or bigger, realms for myself. Worlds that I want to live in. I got bigger circuses that I want to, fight lions in. But then I have friends that do pornography. And that's their world and they're great at it. So I don't want to knock what your world is, but I do want to knock on and bring attention to that you healthily consider what's going on. And considering something from a place of desperation usually isn't good. So that's what I would try and look at for yourself. Those are some of my thoughts, man. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have thoughts. If you have them, hit that hotline, 985-664-9503. I got another show tonight, so I got to actually cruise and do that. I'm sorry about that. I was just kind of getting comfortable into this episode. But I'd love to hear some of you guys' thoughts and information on some of these things. My heart goes out to anybody who had family and friends over there in Florida involved in that in the tragedy. It just, when people make fun of thoughts and prayers, I don't like that. Because what else am I going to do from where I am? I can vote certain ways. I can donate to things. But to think about something and pray about something, I think there's a lot of value in that as well. I mean, if the whole world stopped right now and was praying for something, imagine how nice the world would be. Nobody would be doing anything except hoping good for others. So, and you might be like, well, Theo, that's a really hopeful idea. And it is. I mean, that's not going to happen. But it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. You guys be good to yourselves, man. You probably deserve it. I'm going to take us out on this beautiful hit from Tiny Sandhu. Wasn't that nice of him to send that in? I mean, wasn't that really, really nice? Thank you, Tiny. And happy belated Valentine's to everybody. Man, if this state war happens, the war of the states, who's going to take it? Hit that hotline, 985-664-9503. There's that flip. Get that caramel out for that baby back. That's beautiful. This past weekend.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jonathan Kite, and welcome to Kite Club, a podcast where I'll be sharing thoughts on things like current events, stand-up stories, and 7 ways to pleasure your partner. The answer may shock you. Sometimes I'll interview my friends. Sometimes I won't. And as always, I'll be joined by the voices in my head.
You have 3 new voice messages.
A lot of people are talking about Kite Club. I've been talking about Kite Club for so long, longer than anybody else. So great.
Hey, sweetheart, here's the deal. Anyone who doesn't listen to Kite Club is a dodgy bloody wanker. Do you know what I mean?
Hi, I'll take a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry.
Sorry, sir, but our ice cream machine is broken.
Oh, no!
I think Tom Hanks just butt-dialed me. Anyway, first rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Second rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Third rule, Like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube, yeah? And yes, don't worry, my Brad Pitt impression will get better.
What's up, you little gristle whistlers, huh? You alive, dude? Knock, knock. Who's there? Hopefully you. How you living, man? You believe in ghosts, man? You believe in ghosts? Do ghosts believe in you, though? That's the question. Have you done enough in your life for ghosts to believe in you? You ever accidentally urinate on your ex-girlfriend, bro, while y'all was sharing a sofa while you was sleeping over in Baton Rouge, Louisiana about 9 years ago? Have you ever just wet the bed in your 30s, dude, because you got issues that you haven't dealt with? Huh? You ever covered yourself in baby oil and pretended you was back inside your mother's womb? Ooh, hey, mama. Well, if you have, dude, you're definitely welcome here. This is This Past Weekend. This past weekend. Good morning. It is March 19th, 2017. The year of the, I don't even know what it is, man. Could be a animal, Chinese, probably something they thought of, and shared with the rest of us. I'm Theo Vaughn. This is This Past Weekend. And it's my birthday, man. I'm going to start off and say that. I know we talked about it last week a little bit on here. I was at my brother's home in Baton Rouge, and we taped the episode in his children's. He have 3 beautiful children, and we taped the episode in their playroom where they keep their toys and capes and just daytime pieces of adventure. So here I am back at home in Los Angeles, and it's my birthday, man, and it feels pretty good, I'm 37. I am 37 years old, man. I'm an adult male. Made a lot of poor choices, dude. Wet the bed until pretty much, I'd say early 30s, probably some anxiety, fear of nighttime. Actually, I remember as a child, I would get very scared of going to bed and the darkness and anything that it could, that it could hide inside of itself and exposed to me when I least expected it. And I remember at night I used to stand on my bed at night because I had a fear specifically of animals. We had a lot of dangerous animals in our neighborhood. I grew up in the stray animal belt. A lot of people know that. And I remember at nighttime that I would stand on my bed and urinate around my bed, around off of my bed, just off onto the floor, because I had heard that animals wouldn't attack if another animal had urinated locally. So yeah. So anyway, that was some of my youth, right there, experimenting with urine and trying to protect myself as a child, and just, I guess, coming through a lot of fear, as a young boy. But yeah, I'm 37, man, and it feels scary a little bit. It's kind of one of the last few years you can kind of say how old you are. And I haven't done that for a while. I've been hiding. I've tried to hide my age. I think I've had some ashamed about it. Just uncertainty. Didn't want people to know how old I was. Felt inferior of my accomplishments, that I hadn't done enough in a certain age. But now I'm trying to embrace it. I'm trying to be where I am. And where I am is 37 years of existence, according to a lot of creeps and a lot of brothers out there really perpetuating the idea of a flat earth. People saying that we've been living on a flat earth. Ran into a gentleman today outside of a Whole Foods type of, clean food store, and he was authentic in his beliefs that the earth is flat. So I had to listen to that for a while. Nice gentleman, though, I will say that. But yeah, man, I'm 37. Had a good day. What did I do? I got up. I went and had breakfast with a friend of mine, a rich friend. They well off and beautiful. They got 2 beautiful children, and they just have nice hair. And that's one thing about the rich I always noticed growing up. Their hair looked very like it was bought somewhere or sewn in, or like their hair was from France, like they had, France hair. And I remember the rich always seemed, like if you saw a rich dude with bad hair, you were like, this dude ain't rich. He's not as rich as he could be. Because I remember rich people always had nice hair. But anyhow, man, it's my birthday. I spent time with my friend this morning. I went bike riding today. My boy Dirt Nasty out there, and a couple of other buddies. We went bike riding on these motorized bicycles, and they can go up to like about 30 miles an hour. You just press a button, so you're on a regular bicycle, and next thing you know, you were just flying, bro. So we did that in Venice all day. I threw a little bit of that video. If you're on the YouTube watching, I threw a little bit of that video at the beginning. But anyhow, thank you for joining me. It's good, man. I've had some good birthdays over the years. I remember a friend of mine has a 1-year-old child. Now it's older, but at the time it was 1. And he had his birthday party at Perry Farrell's house. Or Ferry Farrell? The guy from Jane's Addiction, the lead singer. So that was pretty interesting. Go over there, celebrating for a 1-year-old. My ex-girlfriend threw me a surprise party one year. That was very nice. I had a roller rink birthday when I was young. And I remember this young black gentleman came to the party, and nobody knew him. We were children, and he showed up. His mother dropped him off, and he was pleasant. I think Demetrius or Dimitri. He was pleasant, kind of an Italian black kind of name, and he was pleasant, and he enjoyed the party and ate and enjoyed himself and did roller skating. And then his mom came and picked him up, and he went home. And nobody knew him though. None of the parents knew him, and none of the children knew him. So I guess that's one way to fit in, that is for sure. But I appreciate you guys joining me. What's been going on this past weekend? Really just kind of chilled, man. I had about 10 comedy sets. A lot of joy out there. Oh, I met Charlie Sheen, so that was pretty wild. I worked on this thing called Typical Rick, which is a Comedy Central series with Nick Swartzen and Simon Rex. And it was season 2 of that, and I had a small part on there. And I walk over to wardrobe on the set, and Charlie Sheen is sitting there, the big dog himself, Mr. Tiger's Blood, HIV, the Superman. He was smoking a cigarette, and so I got me a cigarette, and we started chatting and just sharing the breeze and just throwing ideas around. And I had this shirt on that had a picture of Michael Landon on it, and everybody knows I'm a big Michael Landon fan. And Charlie asked me about the shirt, and I told him about my fanship. And then he said that that one time he was escaping out of a rehab facility, and that one of Michael Landon's sons, one of Michael Landon's children, was in the facility. And as he was leaving, he saw the door open to the room of Michael Landon's son, and he asked him if he wanted to go party with him, and that they left out and partied for the weekend. So that was pretty cool, man. And he was really captivating. Great energy, super sweet guy. Just honestly nice as could be. And he looked like he'd been at spring break for about 30 years in Cancun. And it was just cool, man. It was just interesting to just kind of chat with him and just shoot the breeze. What else did we talk about? That was it, man. That was it, dude. And I'll tell you this, they had a couple ladies there on set, and I think any lady would have left with him, man. The dude, he just got that, I don't know. He's got that, he just had the charisma, man. That charisma. And so that was it. So that was part of an interesting part of the weekend, was just getting to bump into Mr. Charlie Sheen himself. And a lot of times I think on my birthday I feel negative, or just like I haven't gotten things done. And then sometimes I'll remember, think about this, that you were a sperm, bro. Think about a sperm, dude. There's tons of them. You were a sperm, and now I was a sperm. Everybody pretty much was a sperm unless, somebody's, doing something different. But now look at me. I'm 6 feet tall. I have hands and arms, and I mean, if anything, I've achieved a lot. I mean, I'm probably 30 million times my original size. I'm really on another level. So even just thinking about that, about how far I've come physically, that's pretty amazing. So that's one thing to even just think about on your birthday, that even just physically, that you've come a long way as a human. As a human. And I felt a lot of joy today because my neighbors made me a nice meal. And I got home and they had made me a meal. And they let me invite a friend. And we went over there and we ate. We had some pieces of London broil. And they had a salad that had all kinds of cranberries and avocados and delectable tidbits and this and that. Things that make your face feel good when you put them inside of your mouth. And we also had a little bit of coconut ice cream. As nighttime set in, we had a little bit of that coconut ice cream. And god damn, that shit just feels like it's just fucking the inside of my mouth, man. I love coconut. I love coconut, man. And when I die, I'd be happy to just be packed in it. Just pack me in coconut and astronaut ice cream. If you've ever had that, it's dehydrated ice cream. And they sell it at museums. And it's a very nice treat to have in a museum or in other buildings elsewhere. I think back to my first birthday in Los Angeles. I was living with two friends. I was sleeping under a man's bed, actually. And I think I've mentioned this before. For $150 a month on a large pool raft. He had one of those pool rafts. And I slept under his bed and up under the edge of his bed, except for if he was out of town, I would honestly, I'd get into that man's bed. And even though I didn't know him super well, I knew him, we're buddies, but I would lay in his bed, dude, and I would sleep in there. And that's kind of a wild feeling, I think, sleeping in another man's bed and just letting yourself just be natural, like that, because another man's bed feels like another man. It feels like you being bad, and you just Goldilocks in a gentleman's, and you don't know. And he didn't make his bed. That's another thing I remember. He didn't make his bed. And getting into another man's bed that he doesn't even make, I mean, it really makes you feel a little bit gutter. It puts the guh in gutter, dude. You get in there and it's just not the same as if somebody's bed is made and you get in. It feels a little less, I don't think it's homoerotic. I just think it's just nasty. It feels less nasty that way. So yeah, that was my first birthday in LA. I was paying $150 a month and sleeping under a man's bed. And also I remember my responsibility was we didn't have a refrigerator. And my responsibility was to get us a refrigerator. And it happened to be my birthday. And I finally found a refrigerator on Craigslist. I get the dude to bring it over, get it off of his truck. And I'm trying to be friendly. I'm from the South and I'm just fucking at least partly friendly. And I say, well, I can get it inside. I don't need any help, guys. I want to be a man. And I'd been going to the gymnasium at the time and I might have even been on muscular uppers and stuff that were making me feel strong. So I'm like, I'll get the refrigerator myself. So next thing you know, I'm trying to get this refrigerator. I'm pushing it down this little side alley by the apartments, right up to the back door of the apartment we were staying in. And I get it in the doorway and it gets stuck. And I'm literally running and shouldering this refrigerator, trying to beat this refrigerator into our apartment. It's all, the grill thing on the back, or I don't know what it's called, looks like a vent kind of thing, but where the Freon and stuff is all broken up and shit. And I remember just leaning against it at the end and just crying, bruh. Just crying, man, like a little labia of, of the world, you know, just like a, not even a strong labia, and just crying. And that was my birthday. I just remember, this is my fucking birthday. Here I am crying, trying to beat a refrigerator in, and into an apartment. And that was a dark one, man. That was a dark birthday. But this wasn't that today. Today was nice and calm and adult. And it was one of those days where I realized I gotta be an adult, man. You know, I don't want to grow up sometimes. But at some point, you have to do it. You got to adult. You gotta quit, doing kid shit. And I think in the past year I've done some of those things, I quit drinking. So I quit not drinking. I struggle sometimes with some cigarettes, that. I struggle sometimes as well. Trying to stop huge issue. And I'd love, we're going to call in next week to give some calls. If you have some issues with that, I'd love to know about it. I want to delve into that a lot next week. I'm going to give you that hotline number right now to leave a voicemail. It's 985-664-9503. Call in masturbation, masturbatory activities. And I just want to know how you're dealing with it, the ups and downs of it. Also, if you've had some shitty jobs, I might talk about that as well. Because at a certain point, masturbating is a shitty job, man. It's a habit that you get into, and dealing with that pornography and dealing with that. I mean, I'm just amazed at how many people have reached out to me and said, "Look, man, I'm really struggling with this. I'm really struggling with that activity." But I'm feeling fortunate today. I'm feeling better this week, and thinking about what do I need to get done in my life to make me feel, of my age, to make me feel 37. There's a lot of things that have been just sitting on the diving board, that I've been afraid to just kind of throw into the pool, and now it's time to cut it up, dudes. Now it's time to bust some straight up gunt. You feel me? Now it's time to hum this gunt out into the ether. And that's what I'm going to do. That is what I'm going to do. And I remember I used to have a lot of dreams of things that I never got done. I remember I wanted to sea-doo around the world when I was young. And I wrote a letter to Sea-Doo at the time, and that's like a jet ski type company. But that was the only one they had at the time. I think it was called a Sea-Doo. Seadoo. Sea-Doo. And you could go pretty far on them. And I used to live along a river, and I would do them there and get on them. And I remember emailing them, writing them a letter and saying, I want to sea-doo around the world. I can do this. And they never wrote back. So I've had some dreams that haven't really come to fruition, I wanted to be a dancer. I'll be honest about that, dude, It's kind of it's a tough thing to admit. I'll admit that. But I wanted to be a dancer. In my 20s, I felt... Dude, sometimes I got out of bed and my feet just felt so light. My feet just felt light. Like I could do it. And then I hurt my back, dude. Painting a house and just dangerous. Really painting it just in dangerous heat. In over 100-degree heat. And I was wrapped in this Visqueen suit because a bunch of bees were trying to get me. And I hurt my back, and that ended kind of some of my dancing dreams. But I still have other dreams, I still have other things that I want to get done. But here I am, 37, Here I am, 37, and I'm looking forward to this year. And I'm looking forward to trying to put some safe pressure on myself so that I can get some things done, man. So anyhow, I want to get into some calls, man. We had some great calls. I appreciate everybody reaching out on the hotline. And that number is 985-664-9503. And I'm not offering advice here. but I will try to offer basic life suggestions based on experiences that I've had. Because I've been out there, man. I've been involved in some dirty things, you know? And I've made love to some busted women out in the existence, you know? And I've done the drugs and and I've done some naughty things. I'll tell you one birthday I had that stands out. I was with this man, David was his name, and he had 2 different color eyes. And I've always thought those people were trouble, honestly. When you see somebody and they got 2 different color eyes, it's not they weren't fully designed, I never thought. And this boy, David, we were on this party bus kind of thing, and it was like a tour bus. And I was going to sleep. And he liked to party, you know, and do drugs and do uppers. And he said, hey, man, let's go party. It's about 1:30 in the morning. I was like, man, I'm tired, man. You know, I can't. I'm tired. And he goes, well, I'll go get us some drugs, you know. And this is when I was doing drugs and enjoying drugs. And so I said, well, look, man, if you come back with drugs, I'll do them with you. You know, trying to be supportive. And then I fall asleep. About 4:30 in the morning, this dude rolls back in, and he's got some steroids on him, some testosterone 400. And that's a steroid, Mexican steroid. Rave or something that was popping off around 5 a.m. So that was a birthday that I had. That was a bit lonely. All right, man. Let's get into some of these calls, dude. We got some amazing calls that came in. I want to hear what's up. We're about to hit this hotline right here. All right, we got this call from Franklin, North Carolina.
Hey, bro. My girl has 3 really long, thick, bristly hairs growing out of her navel. I plucked one while she was sleeping. The root was really bulbous and girthy and smelled like bone broth. Should I love her or leave her?
Wow, man. Yeah, that's the hairy navel, dude. I haven't dealt with that. I've definitely dated a girl with a very small head for a while. And even, it was almost just like her neck had gotten real fancy at the top and had a mouth on it and stuff. And I remember her head just felt like an adventurous kind of melon. It was about a 3/4 head maybe of a regular head. And that made me nervous, dude. I dated a girl her mouth smelled like meat around her mouth. It smelled like different meat. Like she was just hiding carpaccio under her skin or something around her mouth, or putting some kind of meats or something on her mouth at night. And I know she wasn't. I mean, that's crazy. She didn't even eat beef jerky or do any of those, nothing like that. But she had this very this kind of barbecue-ish kind of feeling and scent around her lips. That made me nervous. I hooked up with this girl one time in South Carolina or North Carolina her breasts kind of felt like shit diapers a little bit. Like a baby, like if a baby has like a poop diaper, you can mold the diaper and it'll stay that way. And her breasts were like that. You could shape them and they would stay in whatever shape you kind of put them in. So that was very baffling. But I never said a word, I never said a word, dude, because I've had things that I'm sure, and do have things that I'm sure women don't like about me. I've had hairy back, had hairy buttocks. Sometimes I get it kind of tended to. They got a Persian lady over here who really hates hair, and she'll go at it for you for about $50 and really attack it. But I I used to be nervous, self-conscious that I had hair kind of on my buttocks and back. And I even remember I would walk out of the room backwards. Like if I were leaving a bedroom, if I'd been making love with a lady, and I'm walking out of the room, I would walk backwards, like I'm fucking, like I'm that dude in Silence of the Lambs, you know. But I would like walk backwards like I was Michael Jackson, just like I gotta go to the bathroom, just walk out of the room like that, dude. Because maybe I was just self-conscious about that. I had a fever one time really bad and made love to a woman, and I know to this day that she questions probably the heat that was coming out of my body. It was beyond normal. It was like 103-degree fever I was fucking at, and that's very intense probably. So I don't know what she thought. Maybe that I had some type of a rabies, or that I was just angry, just so angry, to be coming in that hot physically. So I think you got to think about that, man. Like, how many hairs and weird body things do you have, not to scold you, but to let you know that, dude, you probably have countless deficiencies. Countless, man. We all do. So you can't really hold your lady to that crazy regard, I don't think, maybe celebrate it. Get her a barrette. Get her a barrette up and just pop a beautiful barrette, like a nice little church brooch for your hair, and put it on those hairs, or gel them down, Make a game about it, Floss your teeth with them, dude. Celebrate it. Maybe instead of, trying to sneak them out of her body while she's resting. And how hard does she even sleep if you're able to pull a hair out of her body? I'd worry more about, some of her sleep patterns than about some of her hair patterns. And just love her, man. That's what I say, dude. Because here's the thing. If you love her for everything, bruh. If she has one leg or one lip or one, or only one fucking hat or anything, dude, love her. If you're gonna love her, love her. That's what I say. If you say you're gonna love somebody, then love them. Otherwise, don't bullshit them up top, man. But if you want to mail that hair in, dude, email me and I'll show the hair to people. Just to prove that you're out there doing that, sneaking hairs out of people's body in the middle of the night, bruh. Damn, dog. That's some Boo Radley shit right there, bruh. But I do appreciate you checking in. And I say just embrace her, man. Show her some bad hair you have. And y'all just be fucking hair bears, dog. Hair bear up. Hair bear up. All right, I got a couple of announcements to make. I'm going to cut to a couple more calls, man. First of all, if you're watching on YouTube or iTunes, go ahead and subscribe. Be a subscriber. Rate the podcast. Give me some decent ratings, because I'm trying to get enough listeners where I can have some advertisers. That's just the business side of that. I have some comedy dates coming up. I feel very grateful to have the ability to be at Comedy on State this weekend, March 23rd through 25th in Madison, Wisconsin. And then I'm going to be at the Punchline in Sacramento, April 21st through 23rd. So I'm excited about that. People have asked me about the shop, theovon.com/store. We got some Got Hamps shirts in there. You can still get the album, 30-pound bag of hamster bones. We were doing well on the charts. We're still doing pretty good, but we could pick it up if you want to grab the album. Talking about my boy that I grew up with, this boy named Danny, who had this deficiency in his neck. So I'll talk about that. All right, let's take another call here. And this is from Canada. This is Monica.
Oh, hey, Theo. This is Monica. I'm calling from Vancouver, Canada. And I'm just wanting to get your male perspective on an issue I'm having. So I'm about 27. I've been dealing with depression and social anxiety probably for the last 10 years or so. And last year was especially pretty rough. Probably the last 6 or 8 months I've been really sad and just feeling lonely and just like empty. And on top of that, I gained a bunch of weight. So you just feel so unattractive and you just want to hide away from everybody. But at this point, I've come to the realization that being alone at this point isn't really good for my psyche, and I know that it's time for me to get out there and pick myself up again and get into the dating world. So I guess I'm just hoping you might have looking for some advice from you to, get some confidence back and get my shit together, hopefully. So any thoughts you have would be greatly appreciated.
Wow. Well, I mean, first, look, Monica, I'll tell you this. I love you. I'll say that right out of the gate, you thick little muffin, If you putting on a pound or two, you could just hug me. I bet it feels good. That's the good thing about if you do put on a little bit of weight, when you hug somebody, you're really giving them more joy. You ever hug a bony person? It's like holding on to a pillowcase full of deer antlers, But you hug a real meat dog, or a meaty or stronger or thicker, Rubenesque. That's beautiful, So I want to say, first of all, that I love you, and I feel you. And it sounds like you're putting a lot on your plate, I mean, you want to feel better. And then you don't want to be alone. And I can sympathize with that. Regarding the weight, I mean, you would be surprised how much getting in shape and getting your blood going makes everything else better. It's specifically your mindset. Like you get a little bit of activity, physical activity, your mind is gonna start to get in shape as well. And I would try to approach your weight loss not with I have to lose weight or I'm gonna lose weight, but with the idea or the mindset that I'm gonna live a healthier lifestyle. Then it's not just about the weight. And I find that people who approach it that way, that I'm going to live a healthier lifestyle, tend to lose weight and actually keep it off because then they're headed in an overall better direction. And this is going to sound kind of silly, but I promise that this works, right? When you see a food that you want but you shouldn't have, don't say I can't eat that. I would say I don't eat that. That way you are taking ownership. You're taking control as opposed to letting the food take the control, if that makes any sense. I don't eat that. That's way freaking, then you're like a thug. You're a thug out there. Whereas if you say, I can't eat that, then you are in this kind of, you're being attacked kind of by the food. So I don't eat that. It's a lot more power for you. And I feel like that will just empower you overall. And I think those are some simple things you can do to start moving like a physically healthier direction. And in terms of like social anxiety, I can 100% relate. I mean, I spent honestly about 5 years of my life sleeping in Santa Monica. I was depressed and I would get uncomfortable being in social circles, and I would lay in my bed and I would just sleep, and I would eat peanut butter and jellies during the daytime, and I would hope for the best, but not act for the best. And I thought that one day I would just wake up, or from some nap, I would just wake up and suddenly the world would be better, or I would feel better. But that never happened. I mean, all I really did was push my problems like 5 years down the road. And there's no magic way to make yourself feel comfortable, like in a social setting. I mean, I think one thing that does help is just trying to make each time you're in a social setting a little bit better than the last time by making more effort. Introduce yourself to people. I think that's the best thing. Just, hey, I'm Theo. Hey, I'm Monica. Because immediately you're taking ownership. You're taking control of the situation. And even if they don't respond well, at least then that's them being antisocial. That's not you being antisocial. And also try to find areas, maybe you could be looking in the wrong circles. Like, dude, I went to nightclubs for years, bruh. And it was a bunch of Persian people in there, usually adult men, or very tan, like men that had been in the gymnasium and looked like their muscles were just trying to climb out of their shirt and leave them because their muscles didn't even like them. like their muscles just wanted to get divorced from their skeletons and just be done with them, and veins blowing up out of their chest and neck, and then a lot of Persian men wearing cologne, heavy cologne. And I would be there, and I would feel like something was wrong with me, But really, everybody in the club, or 90% of the people, were miserable. They were just trying to look like they were having a good time. And one of my problems was I was going to clubs. I was looking repeatedly in the same place for social acceptance, and a place that really I never did like. I never did like clubs, man. I like more of like being around a fire. I even scrapbook, bruh. I fucking scrapbook, dude. I'm not saying I'm gonna join some scrapbookers club with a lot of ladies and stuff, but I needed to find other areas to get social in. And once I started doing that, I would just hang out at a comedy club. Those people, it's just a different vibe. There's no great way to do it, but you got to make an effort. And whether that's the next time I go to a party, I'm going to introduce myself to 2 people, or I'm a pet an animal. You could even start off at a petting zoo. You could start off at a petting zoo and get out there, or meet children. Go to a place where a lot of children are. If you know you don't have any issues with children, and meet children, because they're going to be accepting. They'll be cool. And then just use some of those same skills you learn with children, or even with animals, with adults. And also, like, give yourself permission to be uncomfortable. You don't have to be comfortable. That's another myth. We're not always comfortable, bruh. So give yourself permission to not be comfortable. Oh, I'm uncomfortable. Okay. Instead of like, oh, fuck, I'm uncomfortable. Oh, God. Oh, I'm so uncomfortable. This shirt, it doesn't feel, these shoes, they don't match this. Otherwise, it's like, oh, fuck, I'm uncomfortable. I don't know why. Don't pin the tail on your own donkey if you don't know why you're uncomfortable. I used to do that. Oh, I'm uncomfortable. Bah, 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 bah. But I'll say this. I heard a quote once that insecurity is the belief that this is only happening to us. There's so few feelings in so many people that there's a lot of people who are having the same feelings you are. So you gotta voice them. You gotta share them. Find somebody else that looks awkward as fuck, and boom, that's your first friend. If you feel awkward, find somebody else that's awkward. They're easy to pick out. And then bam, now y'all have dual awkwardness. 2 awkwards. You know what they say, 2 awkwards make a comfort. So I think that could help. I hope some of that shit helps, Be at the library, even though they have a lot of deviant homeless at the library, and a lot of them are, I had some insane experiences when I first got to LA. A lot of homeless, and they do masturbation too at the library. You know that. And Monica, I just want to say I love you. I hope you feel better. You're probably a good woman. You probably are. And if you care enough about yourself to reach out to other people, that's a great start. So you're already doing way better than I was. Those years I was just lying in my bed, just eating peanut butter and jellies, and caught up in the throes of pornography, and just in the darkness. So I'm proud of you there. You got this. Just G up a little. Drink a Red Bull. G up. Even something as little as getting yourself a new pair of sneakers or something like that can kind of, it can just excite you. Some small motivation. And don't do it all in one day. You don't have to change today. You just have to progress today. So progress, not perfection. That's not Alright, we got one more point from Santa Clarita. Spanish.
Everything has been kosher up until today, actually. She texted me and she told me, by the way, I was at work today and the GM of the gym ends up letting her know, like, hey, how'd you get such a nice ass? Which, in my mind, is fucking ridiculous. That's just offensive. You're the GM, you're the general manager of the gym. You don't ask a question like that to your employee.
Yeah.
And from what I know, this is the GM is a generally attractive guy in his younger years, and I just was like, she told me this, which I appreciated, but my question is, I guess, is how would you react to that situation? I mean, you find out this guy's kind of creeping on your girl like that, and I don't even know if it's creeping. I don't know if I should be mad about that, jealous. What should I be, I guess? I don't know. At first I was mad, but that's the question, man. I'm just wondering what you think of it, okay? Let me know.
Awesome, dude. Well, look, thanks for calling in with that, bro. You got some issues there. Your lady's at the gym. The owner of the gym is hitting on her, trying to frickin', attack that gunt from the inside. You feel me? And I respect that. I mean, that's nature. He's just being a part of nature. It sounds like he's being inappropriate. But dude, do you really want a girlfriend that other dudes aren't hitting on? I mean, maybe you do, but I don't think you do. Like, that's one of the consequences. If you're dating a chick that's hot or a chick that works at the gym, bro, any gym, it could just be a single barbell in a basement somewhere, in a cavern, and men will wander in there and hit on her if she says she's a personal trainer. There's something sexy about that, about the woman that works at the gym and trying to, be sensual with her. So that's going to happen. So I think you kind of want that. I mean, you want your girl to be attractive. You want other men to want her. I mean, I'll be honest, bro, right when you even mentioned your girl that he thought she had a nice ass, I wanted to see your girl's ass, bro. And I'm not saying I'm proud of that thought, but I wanted to see your girl's ass, dude. And I wanted to see that ass. I wanted to fuck. I was thinking about it. Man. I was picturing, just whatever her ass looked like, the beautiful little globes and little, just being dirty, bro. I thought about being dirty. So that's the problem with us, man. There's we got the sin inside of us. We got that innermost layer of just dirt ball. It's just that dirt ball. It's almost like we have an extra layer of skin on us, and it's just a bunch of dirt ball cellophane, because we want to be nasty as men, man. I mean, look, I dated a hot chick one time. You know what she did, bro? She fucking cheated on me, dude. So that's what you get, bro. It can happen. It's one of the risks you get. That's why the old school move, date a busted chick and pretend she's hot. That way, if you pretend well enough, you think she's hot, she thinks she's hot, and everybody wins pretty much, I mean, that's one school of thought. And on another level, I would worry less about how you feel about the situation and think about how she feels. I mean, she's getting lurked on by this, as you said, an aging GM who looked better in the past. That's a way creepy situation for her to be in. So I would keep your concern right there, just as to how she feels. If she's handling it and she's confident, then you got to show up with that confidence and be supportive right next to her, dude. You can't be getting too insecure, because women it's not in their nature to want to be with an insecure man. It's not in their nature, bro. Not in their nature. If you put an insecure man, or even an insecure baby, I bet, out in a field, and you put a woman out there who has breast milk in her, and that baby's insecure, he's like, I bet you 3 out of 10 women wouldn't breastfeed that baby. But you put a tough-ass baby out there, a little Italian baby, a German baby, then women are they're gonna want that, because they're gonna feel that security that baby knows what he's doing. That baby's combing his hair. That baby's wearing a gold chain. That baby, I'll breastfeed that baby. Yeah, because if you're insecure about other men being interested in her, then that's going to make her question whether or not you believe in yourself. And if she starts questioning that, then immediately she's going to start questioning whether or not she believes in you. And I think that's just nature. That's the insecurity food chain. So you want to be secure. That's the place you want to come from. Confidence. See if she's all right. Because she's the one who's got to take that ass to the gym and do all the work. I don't even know if you have a job, bruh. You didn't mention you're employed. So I don't know really what you're up to. I mean, I'm supportive of you if you don't have a job, but I'd love for you to be working. But yeah, man, I mean, it's really unwise to ask somebody to be more secure in you than you are. And then I'd let him know. I'd let that dude know. I would let him know in like a weird kind of trill, thug, maybe homoerotic way, dude. Here's what I would do. I would send that dude a letter, the GM dude, and just an anonymous letter. Doesn't know it's from you, doesn't know what woman it's regarding. And I would say, if you keep hitting on my woman, I'm going to track you down and fuck you, bruh. That's what I would say. And I would underline fuck, and I would underline bruh. That way he's going to know you're a little askew. And then I would hashtag let's fuck. That's what I would do. So that way he's like, wait, you don't want me hit on your girl, or you're going to fuck me, and then you're saying let's fuck anyway. Now this dude is going to be, first of all, that makes you seem way secure. You're so secure in your lady, you'll bang this fucking dude? That's secure to me, man. And second of all, it lets that dude know, shit, if he doesn't want to end up copulating with a man, then he needs to watch what he's doing. And he could be doing that to other women, so that could really stop a lot of his behaviors, man. So that's kind of a beautiful idea. But those are just some suggestions that I have. What else, guys? I think that's kind of it maybe for today, man. It's getting late. Where are we at? It's getting late, bro. And then actually I got one more thing. My mother sent me a card. So I'm going to check this card out. It says, happy birthday. Wishing you a wildly wonderful year. I hope 2017, your 37th year, will bring you happiness and self-satisfaction. I love you, Theo, your mom. Really nice of her to send me that beautiful card right there. My mother doesn't have much, but, she doesn't give up. She wasn't equipped with a lot of, sometimes I don't think, all the emotions that I wanted her to have as a mother when I was young. But she never stops working to try and show me that she cares, even if she can't, and not because it's her own fault, but even if she can't always make me feel like she cares. And I think that's it's pretty remarkable to not give up, man. Hard-working woman out of Illinois, and I admire a hard-working woman, man. But yeah, my mother and I had some, just weird stuff growing up. I just never felt, just didn't feel her care sometimes, Just got stuck in this care void. But she never has stopped, ever, trying to let me know that she does care. And that's pretty remarkable. It's the best we can do sometimes as people, man. I don't know. I'll take us out with some music. Let me find a good song. I appreciate you guys being here with me for my birthday. I know I'm a little tired. Maybe Sunday night isn't the night to do this. I don't know. I don't know. But thank you also for supporting the album. 30-pound bag of hamster bones. It's on iTunes. We got a new album that's going to come out soon. The material from the Netflix special will be released on iTunes as well at a fair price. I'm about fair price things and that sort of thing, I'm not out here trying to make a buck, but I'm trying to make something of myself. You know, I'm trying to make something of my 37th year. You know, it's gonna be wild, dude. Here's I'll Be Home for Christmas.
I'll be home for Christmas.
God, they're good all year round. Dude, it's March. It's still good. Listen to that deep voice. That's somebody's stepdaddy right there. That's mustache. That guy's got a big dong and a mustache. Oh man, I met Charlie Sheen too. I'll tell you about it next week. Forgot about that. Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas. Man. I'll see you guys under the mistletoe, huh? Good luck out there, Monica. Keep your head up, huh, boo? All right, boo, boo.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jonathan Kite, and welcome to Kite Club, a podcast where I'll be sharing thoughts on things like current events, stand-up stories, and 7 ways to pleasure your partner. The answer may shock you. Sometimes I'll interview my friends. Sometimes I won't. And as always, I'll be joined by the voices in my head.
You have 3 new voice messages.
A lot of people are talking about Kite Club. I've been talking about Kite Club for so long, longer than anybody else. So great. Hey, sweetheart, here's it Theo. Anyone who doesn't listen to Kite Club is a dodgy bloody wanker. Do you know what I mean?
Hi, I'll take a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry.
Sorry, sir, but our ice cream machine is broken.
Oh, no!
I think Tom Hanks just butt-dialed me. Anyway, first rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Second rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Third rule, like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube, yeah? And yes, don't worry, my Brad Pitt impression will get better.